I'm really happy to be able to have the opportunity to speak to you guys today about authentic leadership. Now, first we need to define leadership itself. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's the ability, it's a charismatic facet of a person's personality, sometimes built on experience, sometimes taught, but it allows a person to be able to focus the energy, the experience, and the skills of one or more people towards common goals. So that's leadership. But my most favorite part about leadership is what I would call authentic leadership. Now, authentic leadership is not the kind of leadership that you get because you've been promoted and you have a new title. So the mere fact that you're called a business leader or our leadership, which most of you have heard either in corporate life or government life, when you hear that phrase, they're talking about the boss or the bosses or the executives, but we're not really talking about people who could lead anyone anywhere. They may be decision makers, and many of us often question those decisions, but they are not authentic in the sense that they cause you to feel the urge to follow them anywhere. In fact, most of us try to avoid them at all costs. So authentic leadership, I'd like you to think back for a moment and try to think about people in your life that you felt brought out that in you. In other words, you admired them for some reason, they had a really good idea, they had a way of making a really positive environment, bring out the best in you. These are authentic leaders. Now, they're not the people, like I said, with the title. Some people find them in their family. Sometimes it's a grandfather or grandmother or a mother. They're not given the title leader, but when you think about it, they do create change. They do unite, sometimes very little people, to make things happen. So those are leaders. Now, some of you who might be involved in martial arts, some type of martial arts, there are leaders called senseis that really are beyond religious leader. They are also the type of leader that have philosophies of life, philosophies of building skills, growing, learning, self-analysis, and they truly act on people's lives in a positive way. So they are authentic leaders, although in common conversation, very few people have ever met a sensei or know what they do. So there are other types of leaders. There are rabbis, there are mayors, there are senators. These are all called leaders. But again, how many of those people really inspire you to move in any direction because they say so? It's not often true. So I don't want you to think that authentic leaders are like the Yeti or a unicorn. You've heard of them, but you really don't know or never seen one. I'd like you to think for a moment about the characteristics of those people in your life. Could have been a coach, sometimes it's a teacher, very often it is a teacher, who got you moving in a direction that was really positive. And now that you look back, you go, wait, that person really was a leader, you know? So the characteristics of that person, can you give me some ideas of what, like if I said a leader is like, or a leader is, what would be some of the words that would come to you? Anybody?
Inspiration.
They inspire. That's exactly right. Anything else? What else do leaders do?
Educate.
Leaders educate. Excellent. That's right. Leaders educate. And they have to educate, because if they want to bring people down a path, they have to teach them what to do, right? Okay, what about how a leader makes you feel, an authentic leader? Do you feel safe? Do you feel?
You feel important. You feel needed.
Right. So mentorship. Because there's a reciprocal relationship between a leader and the people that they're leading, hopefully. In some people's view, a leader is not a person who's actually leading in the sense they're standing in the front with people behind them. They're actually standing at the back, right? And helping people to move forward. That's authentic leadership. One of my favorite quotes about this comes from Gandhi, and he said 2 words. Leaders serve. So a true, authentic leader would serve the people that they're leading. So to me, that's the essence of it. But there's other things about it too. Most people can't identify with a leader who they're afraid of, right? You have to have a certain relationship with a leader to follow them where you know they will do you no harm. There's trust that where you're going is not off a cliff, right? Going back to the corporate and government model, there are people who are considered leaders that could possibly leave you right off the cliff. So there's definitely something to be said about not feeling afraid, okay? So then there's also the fact that you want to have someone who not only won't do you harm, but also might do you some good, right? It's not just that they're neutral. The reason that you follow them or the reason you want to be with them is because they're going to do some good for you. So those are all, if you think about those things, we talked about a good relationship. Good relationships are also built on respect, right? So, you know, the micromanagers of the world, often called leaders, they never allow the people who are working for them to develop because they're constantly telling them what they should be doing every minute of the day, every task, they never allow them to learn, to grow. With that lack of autonomy, those people can never actually become leaders themselves. So, you know, autonomy would be a very important part of this. So where I'm leading you this, I'm leading you, is I'm telling you that if you think about the people that are authentic leaders, and they're very rare, they are people that are highly ethical people, right? What we're talking about, we talked about someone who would do you no harm. They're beneficent, right? They're beneficent, they are non-maleficent. They would do you good, right? Those are things. They would give you your autonomy. You'd have your individual right to make decisions on your own. You can't respect somebody who makes a decision one way today, and then another, same situation, different decision the next day. You just can't, right? It's difficult to believe in people that don't seem to have any principles. So that idea of being fair and just, regardless of the situation, that's a very important thing to most people. They just don't think about it. But when you think about politicians that are often called leaders, you may not see that quality. That may not be what you call authentic leadership. So you're looking for a highly ethical person who you can relate to. So, and I don't know how many of you actually have, had that kind of person in your life, but if you think about it, we're all in situations, all of us here are in some corporate or government or human services situation where leadership from somewhere has to happen, right? That something has to get done, or it should get done, right? So if you're not identifying what you need in your environment, if there's no authentic leader there to bring you where you should be, then how about you? Why can't you be the leader, right? I used to say to my children, I had 3 kids and was pretty much a single mother at the time, and to get anything done, they all had to fall into place somehow because there was just too much chaos. And I used to say to them, be a leader, because that was like the signal that you had to get up and get ready for school or do your homework or help with the dishes or, help mommy not be so crazy. They grew up saying, be a leader. So little did they know I was brainwashing them into leadership, and they all are interested in being some sort of leader. So I have a feeling that as adults, we can kind of adopt that philosophy, and you see that things are going the other way. And there's no leader in sight. What do? There was a really good movie a couple of years ago about education. One of my favorite topics about things that need leadership is education. So I wrote a book on the subject, and the reason that I did that is just that I felt that nobody was really defining the true problem. And so I wrote about how, based on 100 years of experience and lessons learned, we could redefine the system and actually make it work. So I decided that since nobody was talking about the right thing, I would do the research and write it myself. Well, that's an example because education is my love, but all of us have that, right? All of us have something that we really love and that's really important to us. Waiting for Superman was the movie that talked about how the education system was falling apart and everybody was looking to the skies and waiting for Superman to come in and fix it. And the point of the movie was that Superman's not coming. So the teachers and the administrators and so on have to ride along in this morass of No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top and all these government programs that were written by people who know little to nothing about education. So the teachers are kind of bereft. They're kind of, pummeled by the system and, dependent on it for their income. But the true leadership really hasn't arisen from the pack yet. It needs to. And it needs to, I know that some of you are from environmental business, there's an EPA, wonderful organization and all that, but the things that are happening, that we see happening out in the world, are still happening. Nobody is stopping them. And I'm not talking about, blowing up buildings or having all sorts of, riots and protests. I'm talking about authentic leadership, which means define the problem and identify a solution and go for it. Not wait for other people to agree. Not wait for the laws to change. Actually do something yourself. I know it's kind of a lost art, but this country was built on that. It used to be, nothing here. So, and also, my family comes from a long line of industrialists. One of my grandfathers brought refrigeration to Brazil. And he did that because he went to Brazil and he was like, wow, there's nothing to keep anything cold and food spoils really easily and the poor people die. So he figured out a way to do it, and that was not his background. So I believe in the positive nature of human beings. I believe that authentic leadership is in all of us if we care about it. The only missing piece, you can learn how to define a problem, you can learn how to define a project and get things done, but the only thing that I think sadly is probably the most missing piece is passion. The only thing that I see when I go into corporate life every day and I look at things not going well, and I look at the people there and I think, well, they're smart, they could figure this out, and there's enough money and there's enough computers and there's enough everything to get everything done, but nothing's moving forward. And then I realize what's really missing in all this is just passion. It won't make any difference, everyone will still get paid, everybody can still make their car payments and their house payments and stuff, but at the end of the day, how many days and weeks and months did they spend doing pretty much nothing? So nothing happened, right? We'll phase it out, we'll do it in the next release, whatever, but it just doesn't get done. So, what I encourage you to do, by virtue of the fact that you have been part of this conversation today, poof, I now graduate you to the role of authentic leader. You are now authentic leaders. You have my permission and my support to go forward and identify areas where you think that your authentic leadership will make a difference. And we may be the only group of people that do it this year, but that's great. Who cares? So I welcome you to the Authentic Leadership Club. I certainly offer my support and help in anything I can do, and there's no limit. Just let me know. And I thank you for your opportunity to talk to you today.